to have you with us. I'm Dan McDermott, your host for Google Plus Week. Our panel today is Pam Adger in Menifee, California. Welcome, Pam.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dan,
Hello.
Kevin, Michael.
And well, now she's spoiled the surprise. Michael Ellis joins us from. Where are you, Michael?
I'm in New York today.
Excellent. And Kevin Bryan joins us. Where are you, Kevin? You're in Georgia, aren't you?
Yes, I am in the Atlanta area. Hello to everyone.
We'll just say from CNN Center.
Close enough, yeah.
Okay, a quick programming note. I will be on the Virginia Talk Radio Network tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, the 10th of January 2015 at 11, just after CBS News at 11 a.m. You can go to virginiatalkradionetwork.com, or one of the stations is wiqoradio.com. You can listen live, and I'll post it afterward. That's at 11:07 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning, or 8:07 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the morning. And I'll be discussing, I think, the McDonnell verdict. Former Virginia Governor Robert F. McDonnell, who I knew, so I've met on social, and I covered him, and he was sentenced to 2 years in prison on corruption charges. So I'll be discussing that, and also I'll be discussing our first topic tonight, which is the Paris terrorism incidents. So please tune in or check it out afterward, and we're looking for your comments. So there. Okay, so our first story is about this terrorism incident, the series of incidents, 3 days of horrific stuff going on in Paris, and I see that, in a nutshell, this magazine published cartoons which were making fun of some Islamic figures, and they were firebombed previously, and then two brothers, and I guess they said there was a third person involved, but I don't know if he was involved in the actual incident there, went in and shot, I think 12 people, a security guard, a cop, and ironically, the cop was Muslim, and they killed 10 people in the magazine. And I saw my favorite, there were lots of cartoons that came out afterward. My favorite was a picture showing the gunman with his Kalashnikov aimed at the cop on the ground who was begging for mercy right before he shot him in the head, finished him off. There was an arrow pointing to the gunman. It said terrorist, and there was an arrow pointing toward the policeman, and it said Muslim. And which brings up the point that, and I've lived in Islamabad, Pakistan. I've lived in Bangladesh and Dhaka in Bangladesh, and around the time that I was also living in New Delhi. And I think I spent 2 years, maybe 3 years in Pakistan, which is a Muslim country. And I can tell you from my personal experience as a child that it was a different time, but there are people just like we are. Everybody looks different in every country, except the United States, which is really about the only true melting pot. But most people just want a life and, do their thing, a couple kids and stuff. But there are these radicals, and anyway, so Google has donated £250,000, or has announced their intention to, or maybe have by now, along with French publishers, who are also donating £250,000 to help this magazine recoup, and they're planning on printing Wednesday another edition, and with a print run of 1 million copies. So,
sorry, Dan, slight correction. It's 250,000 euros.
I'm sorry. What did I say? Dollars?
You said pounds.
Pounds? Okay, euro. Yeah, I think I'd rather have. I forget the exchange rate, but I think euros are where it's at.
Pounds would be better. But...
Oh, really? So anyway, a rare moment when we digressed on this program. So Michael, you popped up first. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, I don't know. I guess I think the storyline is about Google and French publishers supporting this. So uh, I think it's nice that they're jumping in as corporate citizens. I think I might have stolen Pam's line when I say that, but um, trying to put some of their charitable contributions behind a good cause for freedom of expression. Google is pretty often found in my opinion, on the right side of freedom of expression, and this is one more example of that. So
Let me ask you a question, Michael, and I want to pose this to everybody. CNN's Jeff Zucker was quoted by Brian Stelter, who works for CNN, former New York Times media writer, and he now does the same thing for CNN. He hosts Reliable Sources, which is, in my opinion, this is the best show Sunday morning there is. But he quoted Jeff Zucker in a meeting. He said, the question was, do we show the cartoons on the air? And CNN has an international audience, and everyone would know immediately if they did. And he said, we stand with freedom of speech, but frankly, the security concerns of our employees around the world and our facilities around the world and our affiliates around the world were on his mind, and he said that we're not going to show the actual cartoons that were offensive. And he was beat up to a degree over that. Now, I can speak to this because I am a newspaper publisher, and we just printed an issue last night. It arrived this morning, and it's currently, as I speak, being delivered. And 30,000 people will read it, and it's online. It's a small newspaper compared to CNN or this magazine, but I wouldn't print the damn thing because the security of my staff, I would be concerned. And these are crazy people, and these are not rational people that you can have a conversation with. This is like a wolf that has rabies, and you're trying to have a conversation with them. Do you think the criticism is fair against media publications? Typically online, you saw a lot of bravado. I'll publish it, and a lot of criticism. But the legacy media were more reluctant to show the cartoons. What do you think about it, Michael? What would you have done?
isn't that partly because the legacy media have bricks and mortar that can be more easily attacked?
Exactly.
That would be my first point. But the second, this is not. It's not a shining moment in the time of print media who are unwilling to publish things like this because the print willing to publish things that are offensive against law.
You're breaking up pretty bad. Let me what we
about if they're offensive, and the people who are offended also are willing to back up their offenses, their sense of offense. I'm sorry, I can't find the right words. Their sense of being offended with military might. So I don't know if I guess I would want the newspaper companies to be brave and take extra measures to provide themselves with security, but I want them to publish whatever needs to be published. It's news, and I guess that's the question they have to just. Seems to me, if I were in the news business, seems to me is news because of the very nature of the terrorist attack based on these.
Michael, let me cut you briefly because
so.
your signal's really bad. Your video's freezing and your audio's awkward, I guess.
Sorry, I saw
That's
that
okay.
too.
So let me go to Kevin real quick, and then we'll go to Pam. Kevin, there are a couple of reasons. The security issue is just one. The other issue is these are very offensive to Islam. It's not just, and I've heard mixed reports of. I don't speak French, I'm not sure, but I've heard mixed reports of whether they actually saw the prophet did a cartoon of Muhammad, and then I've heard that nowhere in the Quran does it say that it's blasphemy to portray an image of the prophet Muhammad. And so it's like a lot of things, like the celibacy of priests in Catholicism is not biblical. It's something that a pope decided, and they had wives for centuries until the pope decided that they couldn't anymore, and then that's the way it is. It's not, from Jesus. It's church doctrine by humans. So, but these are very offensive, and just like I wouldn't. The thing, okay, Kevin, I remember the famous court case. Jerry Falwell sued Larry Flint, publisher of Hustler magazine, because Larry Flint did a parody ad for, I forget, I don't know if it was whiskey or whatever, and it was Jerry Falwell talking about his mother and how he had sex with her in an outhouse or something. It was just patently offensive. And Jerry Falwell sued, and it got all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they said because he's a public figure, it was a parody. It was clearly a parody. It wasn't meant to be taken seriously, and Larry Flint won. And later in life, and I knew Jerry Falwell, I met him several times, but I know his son, Jerry Jr., very well, and he was a big advertiser when I had a newspaper in Lynchburg, Virginia. But Larry Flint became good friends with Jerry Falwell later in life, and when Jerry Sr. died, Larry Flint showed up at his funeral. That's the way it's supposed to work. You have an argument, someone does something over the top, you duke it out, but you don't kill each other over it. So this is a different thing. So Kevin, what do you think? Is it fair to criticize CNN for saying they're concerned about their safety and this really isn't their fight? Or is it their fight because it's a First Amendment issue? And is it wrong to not publish them? Because frankly, I think there's a lot of good Muslims out there that would be offended by them. And not just by portraying the prophet, but they were legitimately, over the top. Just like I wouldn't run something making fun of Pope Francis that would offend Catholics, or making fun of, you name it, the head of whatever church. What do you think, Kevin? This is a convoluted, weird issue.
Well, it depends. First, can you hear me correctly?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, wanted to make sure. Okay, there were a couple of questions that you put in there. Is it right to criticize them? Should they publish it? And something else. The first part, is it reasonable to criticize them? I think it is reasonable to criticize them. In terms of whether they should have published it, they absolutely should have published it. In terms of if I was in charge, would I publish it? Yeah, I would publish it. But to expand on that, I understand exactly why they wouldn't want to do it. And it's because they're not brave to begin with. That's really what it is. They are being cowards about this. And I'm not talking about, I fully understand that there is a body count that we're talking about here. This is not just some random cartoon that you're just going to throw up and then, nothing's going to happen and everyone's going to giggle and everyone, is just going to go home at the end of the day. There is a small risk that if you publish this information, if you put it on the air, there is definitely a risk that people could die from this.
Absolutely.
So
remember, Kevin, they were firebombed previously.
Oh yeah.
And they put out in that magazine, I forget the name. There's an Al Qaeda magazine and there's an ISIS magazine, and they actually put out a hit list, like the FBI's 10 most wanted, and this cartoonist was on that list. So clearly there was a danger, which was realized the other day.
Well, absolutely. There's a danger, but there's a certain hypocrisy in CNN in publishing lots of war footage where other people are dying, but if it ever comes anywhere close to them, then they don't want to publish anything. They profit off of showing other people dying, but they don't want to show anything that has any potential of anyone actually being hurt that's anywhere close to them. If you're willing to show war footage, then you should be willing to show innocent images that should be able to be shown on the air without any kind of repercussions. Obviously, there's a big risk that would happen in this case, but freedom is worth it. And to be relevant as an actual news publishing organization, they should show these pictures 100%. And actually show me something. Here's what the problem is. I wanted to find out what the fuss was about, and I had to go to another news organization to find out what the problem was with the images. And CNN was supposed to tell me that information, and they didn't tell me that information. So if you're not doing that, then what good are you as a news organization? That is not to say that I don't understand why they didn't publish it. It just tells me more of who they really are, which is not very useful as a news organization.
Okay, let me make a point and then go to a comment from Cy, and then we'll go to Pam. I watch all the morning shows, and I mean, not every day, but I don't have like a favorite. I do have a favorite. I mean, ABC was talking about, you know, what color your kitchen should be or something, you know, and CBS is really good, and CNN's good. I like Morning Joe; they're pretty good. But so I was watching Morning Joe, and they were showing the video, that the key video of the magazine incident was the there were two, but on that day there was one where the two guys were coming out. You heard the really loud shots, and they killed the cop. And MSNBC was showing the before and the after, but not the actual killing of the cop. So then I went to CNN. I noticed they were showing the entire video looped continuously. Then about 10 minutes later, they were showing the video, and basically the cop, you see the gunman shooting towards someone. Then the phone, it's amateur video, so the phone moves over. Then you see a cop on the ground or against the wall. Then he's on the ground. So they shot the cop, and then as the guy approaches, the cop turns around like this and says something, and the cop was a Muslim, right? He was just doing his job, and the guy comes up and just bam, hits him in the head. He's done, and then they go back, and then they do this thing with their finger. I guess it's sort of their sign. And on one of the guy's Facebook pages, I saw he had this sign up that's like their whatever attaboy. But then about 10 minutes later, they were showing the same video loop, but CNN was now blurring the cop image. So they were all wrestling with what do you show, and it's a tough call. Cybernaut has a comment here, and he's saying that I support freedom of speech. If you want to burn a U.S. flag in protest, I will do everything in my power to allow you that freedom. However, burning a U.S. flag is offensive to some, and I would not participate in your protest. Publishing a likeness of Muhammad is offensive to some. I feel, though, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Our freedom of speech comes with a responsibility for the things we say. And I also think that a news organization should publish something if it's news, and that they shouldn't necessarily be in the advocacy business and publishing something because they want to make a point, unless you have an opinion show. If you have like Fox News has Shepard Smith, who's pretty mainstream news, and then they have Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity, who are anything but. You know, they're opinion shows, and it's a mix. MSNBC is straight opinion the whole day, and CNN it does a mixture, but they're mainly news.
In this case, they shouldn't show it because they want to make a point. They should show it because without showing the pictures, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know what's so offensive about this. In that context, I think they should show it. But you know, I worry very much about cartoonists. I'm a very big comic book fanatic, and one of the first artists to ever receive a criminal conviction for obscenity for artwork in the U.S. was actually a comic book artist, a guy named Mike Diana. He actually went to jail for this. So I worry very much about freedom of expression in that way. And I'm not saying that his art, Mike Diana, should have been shown on the air, but in this case, if there was something that happened where people ended up dying over the images, I would like to see how offensive these things really are. You know, if you have to literally blur some part of the image out because there's, you know, some nudity or something that's drawn, I'm okay with that. But just show me what they're talking about, because otherwise I have no idea what they're talking about.
Let me, Pam, do you want to weigh in on this?
Kevin said exactly what I would have said, much more eloquently than I would have said it. So I'm gonna side with what he said.
Yeah, you know, this is a real line in the sand in terms of, are we willing to fight for freedom of expression? You know, this is not the battle that people would want to choose, but this is the battle that we have. You know, we have some instance where someone drew an image and several people, not even one person, but several people ended up dead simply for drawing an image. We have to show that that drawing an image is not something that's worth dying over in the mainstream media, not on the sidelines. This is a mainstream issue. And also to make sure that there's, I'm sorry to cut you off, but also to make sure that we don't engage in a lot of self-censorship as well. To know that we can put out what we think is right without worrying about these individual lines that we might worry about crossing.
And they already do. News organizations are exceedingly biased, and they slant a certain direction, and they pick and they choose how a story is to be presented. And I think that in this case, um, um, the fact that a lot of news organizations are biased, and they made this choice to censor the images, it kind of gives credence to the terrorists in a way. It kind of uh, the only reason I wanted that stupid movie about North Korea to be shown was because I wanted to negate what had been done, to try and prevent it.
Pam,
And
I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
I'm just saying it to me it's the same sort of thing. It's kind of like they buy in to the fact that it's offensive, even if that's not the purpose. That's how it's going to be seen by the terrorists. Aha, see, we won. They're not going to show it,
Pam,
and that's,
Pam,
yes.
are your public posts available to anybody on the internet?
As far as I know,
Really? You don't have age restrictions on it?
no. I removed them.
You remove them.
I did, because I don't like the fact that I can no longer get any of my old posts.
If that wasn't there, you did have age
No, I
restrictions
did,
on-
and I did. I
And-
absolutely did.
Isn't that self-censorship in the same sort?
Sure, but I don't portray myself as being a news organization. I don't have the responsibility
Plus,
to the rest of the
censorship to
world,
protect minors.
or it's censorship because of whatever I want it to be. I'm not doing it to prevent someone from dying.
That's a fair point, Pam. I think my point, though, Michael, is it doesn't matter what you're self-censoring against. The argument here was made generally that self-censorship was bad, and yet I'd point out that we're all doing it. I do it.
Of
I do it all
course
the
you
time.
do it. I mean, we try not to say the F word as often on camera as we might off camera. We,
Well, that's only because you're afraid that the FCC will smack you around.
well, I think I'm okay there. But let me go to a comment from George Cozy, who says, why do you guys think CNN is a news organization? True, they do some news, but to me, CNN is a Rolex advertising, sailing, and golfing magazine. I like CNN, but I like them more when, just like I like the Al Jazeera English when, stuff was getting real in Egypt because they had the best coverage, but I would never watch them otherwise.
Well, anyone is free to self-censor if they want to, but everyone should also be free to not self-censor if they want to. And I feel that as a news organization, they're self-censoring in a way that makes them not tell the news in a way that's useful to me, and that's a problem, because you're supposed to be telling me, that's your main purpose on being on the air. You're supposed to tell me what's going on, and when you don't show these pictures, I kind of don't know what's going on. That's my biggest problem.
Well, I mean, it was like, okay, another example of self-censorship was when they cut, was it Mark Foley? Or as the congressman and the journalist who got his head cut off, I don't want to mix them up. I think it's Mark Foley. And none of the mainstream media outlets showed that. So that was self-censorship. And I'm glad they didn't see it. I don't want to see that. I don't want them to have the victory of me being freaked out for 3 weeks. I deliberately made a point not to see it. I ended up seeing it by accident. It was rough. But,
well, in that case, they didn't need to show it. When you say the word beheading, everyone knows what a beheading is. When you say a cartoon, you have no idea what kind of cartoon it is. That's the problem. It could be, who knows how
I think one of
offensive
them
or
was like
unoffensive it
Muhammad
is.
was having anal sex, or they're over the top. It's offensive. Just like if you did the same thing about Pope Francis, you'd piss off a bunch of Catholics. So what is to be gained by pissing off a bunch of Catholics or pissing off a bunch of Muslims or pissing off a bunch of Jews or whatever, you know, insert your favorite religious group in there. I just, you know, I think as a guy who runs a media organization with like 20 people who could be affected, I wouldn't run the cartoon for two reasons. One, for the safety and security. You can call that a terrorist win if you want. Two, because it offend, you know, peaceful Muslims. I mean, why troll people when you can just say it was over the top and wildly offensive to, you know, cartoons, and that they have been firebombed for. I'm not excusing the conduct of the terrorists. Like I said, these are not. I don't view this brother gang as human beings. They're like rabid animals that you can't reason with. You just have to kill them. But that said, you know, even the former White House spokesman on CNN said he thought that they were not behaving in a responsible manner. It was sort of like Mad Magazine type stuff with an incredible edge. George Cozy comments, Mayor, unpronounceable name of Rotterdam, a Muslim, referring to the Paris murders. He said, if you don't like it here, bugger off. In the Netherlands, there is no place for people who turn against our freedom, indescribable form of barbarism and backwardness. And I would point out, even the leader of Hezbollah said that this was, I forget the term, it was you know, outrageous. He condemned it in the strongest terms. He said that, you know, these murders were far more offensive than any cartoon portraying Muhammad. And this is, you know, a bunch of, I guess, losers with no future who get sucked into a cult and have nothing to lose, and they want to go out in a blaze of glory, and it's just sad. And it's scary because it could happen anywhere. That's why it's a big story. Pam made the point before we went on the air. She said, well, you know, there are all sorts of people who get killed. Boko Haram just, you know, killed a couple hundred people or whatever. And this is getting way more press. And she's right. I think it's not because these are people like us, Westerners. It's because to us it's more relevant because it could be us. The odds of me getting attacked by Boko Haram in West Africa are pretty slim, but the odds of me being in a Starbucks that gets mowed down by some crazy fanatic are higher than that. So that's why it's more relevant. Go ahead, Kevin. Then we probably should move.
Yeah, last thing. You just have to keep in mind, you obviously wouldn't want to show it this time, but what happens 2 weeks from now if there's something else that's offensive and they just put up that threat? You know, do you just shut that down too? Another 2 weeks, they shut down something else. It's a problem. It can be a problem. And I understand why they didn't do it, but they are less relevant to me as a result. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, and then final comment here from George on this. He says, I do self-censor. I refuse to look at those beheading videos. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I also refuse to look at those stolen nude celebrity videos. George, I'm 0-1 or 1-0 or whatever on that one. I didn't look at the beheading video. Okay.
You didn't have to tell us which one you didn't look at.
Yeah, so... all right, so next up is, Michael, I guess you put this one in here? The auto enhance for videos.
I did not.
Oh. Someone said on the thing, it said, started by MGE with this first topic.
That's a leftover remark from a... Oh, unless it's from... I might have put that... Actually, I did put it in. Gosh. Sorry, but so much has happened to me in the last week, I completely forgot that I added that right after the show last week.
Pam, can you...
I put that in.
Can you order me on Amazon a bottle of whatever Michael is drinking, please?
No, you
actually,
need a bottle of whatever I was drinking last week, because
right.
that's when I forgot.
Okay, so tell us, Michael.
I can't.
And
You can't buy that kind of bourbon on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, last week it was a very high-end wine which you couldn't buy on Amazon.
So what's the story with this Google Plus Auto Enhance for videos?
Jeez, I wish I remembered.
Oh my God! It's your freaking topic.
Yeah, I know. There's they added the auto awesome features.
They've added an auto enhance
Or-
feature for Google Plus videos, so we're very excited about that.
Right.
This is fail with
Exactly.
capital FAIL. So
No,
anyway,
they added a capability to Google Plus for you, or for, I guess it's for YouTube, for automatically enhancing videos to make them cleaner and crisper, so you
Wait,
can
so-
see things in them better.
just to clarify, this enhances them and does it automatically. This new auto enhance.
Now, I'm explaining it to the best of my ability.
Or inability.
Let me add something in here. There's one part that I'm worried about. They're going to affect the stability of the picture, and I'm worried about that because they've had that feature on YouTube for a little bit of time, and it doesn't. To me, it makes the video look very fake.
It
when they
sucks.
try
It's
and
like,
add
yeah,
stability.
it takes your pristine video of your kids snowboarding and turns it into a Bigfoot video.
It makes it look very unreal. Is what it does. It tries to smooth everything out, but it's like it instead of moving and then have some blur in there, and to me some blur is okay. Instead it tries to smooth everything out, but it seems like it's on rails. Like the camera is on rails. It makes it look more robotic, is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
The stability that it does. So I'm very worried that they're
Interesting.
going to take that same idea and put that onto other videos because I don't like that look at all. I'd rather see more shakiness than to have that robotic feel to it.
Thank you, Kevin Speed Reader Brian, for your analysis. But it enhances automatically your videos. All right, next up is YouTube will soon support 360-degree video uploads.
That's it. I'm never adding another topic.
Is that supposed to be some kind of Oculus Rift or VR kind of thing?
I don't know. Maybe you could watch it that way, but I guess it's like that Panasonic camera.
No,
that...
it's Photosphere.
But to a video?
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's not the two camera like I'm thinking Avatar, James Cameron. You're talking it's
No,
the...
no. Not if we're talking three. That's called three-dimensional, Dan.
Oh, sorry.
This is 360 degrees.
This is like the Google Earth car
Yes.
that killed the mule but didn't really.
This is like a Google Earth car, or if you remember back in the 50s and 60s, things like Circle-Rama.
I wouldn't remember that, but we could refer to Michael Ellis for any references.
Well, if you went to Disney World, they've been doing it for decades.
Okay.
No, I mean this is basically this is basically taking photospheres and doing videos with them, is what it sounds like. And I predict just like the YouTube support of 3D, it'll be a passing fad, and you'll have a few of them, and then they'll stop supporting it one day.
I can't imagine the use right now for it. I guess it's just I think it's exactly what you're talking about, Alan. It's just something to play with. That, but I am glad that they're adding that feature, even if it's not widely used. Even if there's a couple of videos that use it, it's great to see that kind of new idea just getting thrown up against the wall, because it's not it's not the hardest thing in the world to add to YouTube. So.
I would rather they work on making the thing work before they
I
add
knew
crazy
you were
new
gonna say that.
features.
Oh, you mean like getting videos to people's sub boxes, like they have not done since 2006?
Try making this Hangout work. That would be just a start.
Okay, so
Don't blame Google for Dan's problems.
yeah,
This is not just Dan's problems.
even with all of Google's powers, that would be. Tough
I think
to,
what's most interesting about this is that part of the reason why they're doing this is because there are cameras that shoot in this format. So it's not like they're, saying, hey, 360 videos, if you can figure out how to create them. There are like 4 cameras on the market that create them.
Yeah, that's what makes it so cool that they can put it out there and just say, well, hey, let's try something out. Let's see what it would look like. Let's see if we can come up with some kind of new features. The same way, I like the way that they've added 60 frames per second on the 1080p videos now and higher. You can get like 60 frames per second published, so that's another thing that they've added out there.
I think this is spaghetti against the wall. A couple comments here. 8SL2K1. We'll call him Joe, says, you're more likely to be killed by a right-wing extremist or gun nut than a Muslim. And Mady Crit says, I wonder if any magazines will dare show such cartoons, and does that mean that these people win? I think we have seen some in the UK. I don't know if any other French ones have. I just don't know. But I think, like The Guardian, those types, or Telegraph, some of the magazines, some of the newspapers in England, the UK have printed them, but I just honestly don't know. I'm sure some have. A lot of them have done not the specific cartoons from the magazine, but more cartoons like the one I referenced, where it had an arrow pointing toward the terrorist saying terrorist, and the arrow pointing to the cop he was about to shoot as Muslim, making the point that this guy's just insane. These people are insane, and it's not every Muslim is a radical Muslim. And there's two who I just got a hamburger from yesterday, and they're nice folks. Okay, so all right, so we're all excited about the new 360-degree video uploads feature. The only thing that tops that is the audio enhance for videos feature. Okay, so this was kind of a BS story.
Not audio.
Auto enhance, sorry. I put this title in quotes because I think it's a bum rap. I think Google anticipated this and did it on purpose because it was the revenue loss was not as significant as what they were paying Firefox. But the headline here is Google sees biggest search traffic drop since 2009 as Yahoo gains ground, but not really. But it was 2.1% or something. But this was anticipated because they used to be the default search engine for Firefox, and they were paying for that, which I actually didn't know. I just thought they were kind of in cahoots with Google. But so they went from like 77% to 75%. Oh God. Sell. So I think this was all hyped up.
Sell your share.
Yeah, I think it's a BS story. I mean, they went down 2%, but I don't think it's going to be like a trend. It tells me that more people are using Chrome than Firefox. Firefox used to be the thing, but I stopped using it. I use it rarely. I think I used it maybe twice last year.
Well,
Chrome is where it's at. And Chrome's gotten a lot better. Go ahead, Pam.
Chrome has not gotten a lot better. It sucks. It eats RAM for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I still can't be in this Hangout and have a tab open. I can't read any of the stories while I'm in this Hangout because it'll crash.
That would be an example of it just doesn't work.
And I think even some Googlers have complained about that, famously so.
It is a pretty notorious memory hog. It's pretty bad.
I've seen mine. It used to crash far more often than it does now. I could have like 20 tabs open and be fine. But then once it goes, it's over. It's once something Flash has stopped work or whatever, that's it, and you got to reboot or whatever, or close everything down. And because I have like tab creep, like everybody, you start out with one tab and then you see something on Twitter and I can't read it now, so I'll leave it open, and then all of a sudden there's 70 tabs open. Alan, do you think Chrome's got any better?
Well, it's hard to say. I threw hardware at the problem.
That is a solution.
No, it's not a solution.
That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to get a good 16 gigs of RAM or something, but I can't afford it right now. Maybe in a couple months, since I just did my refi and I'm going to be swimming in cash. pretty
I
soon.
mean, I'll be honest, at first I threw a Chromebook at the solution, and it worked. It solved the problem quite well. And then I threw a much more powerful Mac at the problem, and it seems to have solved it fine. And no, it's not a solution. I think it's important that Chrome is pushing the envelope on some of the technologies that are built into it. That's very important. But it would be nice if they solved some of their memory problems. But let's be honest, they're not going to. And the only reason why Firefox used to be the undisputed memory hog until Chrome came along. So it's not like Firefox is totally blameless here.
Yeah, Firefox, every time, I didn't run it all the time, so every single freaking time I'd run the thing, please wait while we're updating, and I was just like, screw this. So I just stopped using it, and Chrome got better. But functionally, Chrome is, in my opinion, far superior to everything. But it has been a hog. But in my use case, on my specific computers, it seems that it's better, although it's very slow to start when you first initially launch it. And it might be a minute and a half before it's really ready on a fresh reboot of the computer, which is very frustrating. So there. Okay, so we're all excited about that. Google takes on AirPlay with Google Cast for audio. These are hardware devices, sort of like the audio tubes you can put on your TV, and some other things. They're going to be working with LG stuff. So this is a push.
It's Chromecast for audio.
Basically, yeah. So
well, it's Chromecast for audio with a built-in speaker. I mean, it's like saying that you've got a TV that has a Chromecast built into it, except this is for audio. It's not exactly it's not the same Chromecast device. Obviously, it's the same protocol behind the scenes, and the same concept. But it's basically a Chromecast with a speaker built into it.
So you don't, Alan, I'm sorry, you don't buy a dongle, or if I can use that term, for this audio system?
Oh my God, this is a family program, Michael.
My understanding is no. You're buying a speaker that understands how to speak Chromecast.
Oh, I didn't get that. Okay, well, that is different than I thought. Okay.
Now, I could be wrong.
But it does sound good to me, though, because I would really love to have a device that could sit in my apartment and play music that I could direct from my computer. Or I guess it would have to be my phone, because, of course, they don't acknowledge computers anymore.
Yes, they do. That's actually the beauty of the Chromecast, is that it works perfectly well with either a mobile device or a desktop device.
It's a really cool feature. In fact, at Christmas, that was my gift. We do a gift exchange, and you can. It's one of those. I forget what you call it, but you get your number 4, and when your turn comes up, you can
Secret Santa,
or you can take someone else's gift from them, and then
Dan,
or you
cut
can
to the
pick
chase.
one. And the Chromecast was the most sought after gift next to the Jack Daniel's honey flavor. The gift box, that was the most popular.
Oh, I would have been very conflicted in that contest.
It's a tough call, toughest call since the Iran-Iraq War. But a couple other comments here. Jeff Stoner says perhaps the 3D video is aimed at 360 degree is aimed at Oculus Rift headsets. George says to Alan, I think Google may actually welcome the small loss in search. Google has a gigantism problem, and this helps with that. I doubt they're welcoming it, but they anticipated it, and I'm guessing that the loss in revenue is less than the expense they were paying to Firefox.
George makes a very, very important point here, which we all just glossed over as we decided to make fun of Chrome. One of the points that you've made, like every time we talk about Europe, Dan, is, I will make the
not
case
a monopoly.
that Google is the de facto monopoly, and you'll say, no, anybody can come along and knock Google off their high horse. Well, here's somebody that just knocked Google down 2 percentage points.
And you can bet they're going to use that in their discussions about antitrust, monopoly.
Oh, now they can say, we're trending down and you're piling on with your regulations. Yeah, this would be great.
Or another competitor came along and our consumers didn't choose to stay with us. They chose to go somewhere else. We lost 2 percentage points. I mean, it's a rational position for them to take.
So I'm glad that not all gigantism can be blamed on American fast food in our eastward expansion. Wendell points us to a Search Engine Land article. Yahoo search losing Firefox users switch back. Ooh, that they're switching back to Google. And then
Yeah, that's the other side of this, is that within the past couple of days, it seems like people who were using the default search on Firefox are now switching back to Google. So,
which is almost a better argument for what you were talking about before. The fact that that proves that it's not that they're just known. It's they're better, because when they're switched
that
from
still
Google
makes them
to
de facto monopoly. That it actually plays against Google. At least plays against Google's argument to Europe.
it plays that it's fair, though, Alice, what I'm saying. In other words, if you can show that if a bunch of users, millions of users, are suddenly switched from Chrome,
No, it doesn't say that. It
Google
doesn't
to
show
Bing,
that it's fair. It doesn't show that it's fair. It shows that Google has de facto control, enough control that people will stick with Google, despite having to go through hoops to do so. That
Okay.
plays right into Europe's argument.
Okay. Which we try to do all the time on this program. All right.
Right.
I would just like to add, I'm looking forward to those speakers. They sound dope. The end.
They sound what?
Get yourself a cue.
They sound dope.
They sound dope. Representing the
Get yourself
cool
a cue, Kevin.
coolness
I don't
drips.
know what that means.
Coolness drips off of Kevin. That's from the 80s, Michael.
It's dope means the same thing as funky fresh.
We need Barbara Billingsley to translate your jive. Your jive talk
For Mike Ellis.
For Mike Ellis. Oh my God, that scene from Airplane. Pardon me, I speak jive. Oh my God, the Leave It to Beaver moment. That was like badass. And
It
then
means they sound really good.
Matey says, and I have no idea, I may be massacring your name, I apologize, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Matey says, a good benefit of this live chat is you don't get a torrent of notifications. Good job, Google. Yeah, I think apparently now you can, if you're watching the show on a mobile device, you can now comment on YouTube, so that's really cool. And I wish they would fix the API or whatever the hell is preventing the comment tracker from working. Unless they have, because I haven't tried it the last couple shows, because it wasn't working. So now I'm just manually checking stuff, clicking on
Helpful.
things. It's awful. I have to click all these buttons. All right, so a couple comments on this. We have Captain Euro. How is it different from... Okay, George Cozy says, when Spartan comes out, I shall give it a good try. Then he says, Dan McDermott, dongle is not an offensive word unless you also mention a pair of balls in the same sentence. Captain Euro.
Okay, so fine.
Thank you for coming to my defense.
I was obviously trolling Michael. Captain Euro, how is this different from my Sonos system? And Wendell, it shows that Google Search is a better product. Indeed.
No, I'm sorry. It doesn't show that. I mean, I think Google Search is a better product.
Well,
But it
people are
doesn't
on
show
search.
that- It doesn't show that.
Well, it shows that it's a more preferable product to Bing.
Not necessarily.
If they're on Google and then Firefox switches the default to Bing and people switch back to Google, I think it clearly shows a preference.
It doesn't. That's like saying that one prefers to breathe air as opposed to water.
Well, I would prefer that. I'm not I'm a mammal. I mean,
You would prefer to breathe air as opposed to carbon dioxide.
you're out on a limb here. I wish Cadeas was here to say, you wrong, Alan. Dan's right.
They would agree with me.
Only because the,
I mean,
the
don't get
fix
me
is
wrong.
in.
I do think that Google Search is a better search product. But the fact that people are switching back to it from something else is not proof of that.
Also,
what it is
well,
proof of is that Google is a monopoly.
Google has so much. If Yahoo had stuck to it and continued to improve their algorithms and stolen every idea they could without violating patent law or getting caught, then Yahoo might have a good search engine. But right now they're just licensing Bing, and I do think it is a mistake for anyone to count Bing out long term, because Microsoft has some bank too, and they may get their act together. They may come up with really innovative features and some killer algorithm. It was two kids in the Stanford dorm who came up with a better algorithm than Yahoo Search, and they took over the world of search. Two kids. They were not
There
average
was no
kids.
such thing as Yahoo Search at the time.
I thought they. What was it?
They took over Alta Vista, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I was using Yahoo at the time.
You were using Yahoo Search wasn't search. It was a directory. That was actually the brilliancy of Yahoo, was that it was a curated list of websites.
Okay, yeah, because you could pay to get on quicker. You could just submit your site, or you could pay them, and they would put you on faster. You actually had to pay to get in there. With Google, of course, it's not like that. And then, of course, lest we forget Jeeves. Dating myself
Ask
there.
Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves. Okay, so
I loved Ask Jeeves.
you serious? Did you
Totally serious.
Did you troll Jeeves, or you had serious questions for Jeeves?
Serious questions. I didn't know what trolling was until Google Plus.
You just didn't know what it was called.
Now I'm pretty good at that. Yeah.
Yeah, now you're an expert.
Yeah, we all learn as we age. Okay, so next up is CES. I don't have a good post. That was my fail, but I'll
There's
tell
one
you.
thing.
Go ahead.
There was one thing I saw there, which was something I didn't really understand before, which was a quantum dot technology. What's going on is they're now pushing. I mean, this isn't the first time that they've ever shown it, but it's the first time it's really made an impression on me and gotten into my field of view, where they're introducing something called quantum dots, quantum dot TVs. And this is where they come up with really teeny tiny crystals that are able to send out different colors, but they can also be turned off because they don't have to be backlit. And so you can get better blacks on quantum.
Oh, that's
dot
great.
TVs. And that's a problem with LED backlit sets. But now with these quantum dots, you can make it darker now. So now when it's really dark, it's really dark. That isn't a great CS story.
So
it's interesting for the future. That's what I will say.
There is some risk in what I'm about to say, but
Just stay away from the
black is
dongles.
beautiful.
Oh my God. If Anthony Klauser were here, he'd say, "Is this a throwaway episode?" I love Anthony. I wish he'd come on more often. He comes on like once a year now.
Yeah, but that quantum dot technology sounded pretty interesting to me, and it's not going to change. The problem is still content. I mean, we're still making better looking TVs where we don't have, but here's really why I brought it. I put in this article here. The reason I brought it up was because I'm seeing advances in TV technology, but the new TVs don't depend on the new release dates for hardware. They depend on the new release dates for Avatar. That's what's going to make the difference, because unless you have
what?
Avatar, the movie. James Cameron is working on the Avatar sequels as we speak. It's going to take him, 18.
I see.
It's going to take him 18 years or so to make all 5 at the same time, whatever he's going to do. But whenever he releases it, it's going to be the biggest thing in movies ever. Probably bigger opening than the Avengers. Probably bigger than anything that has come out before it in terms of revenue. Simply because they'll probably put it out only in 3D IMAX, smell-o-vision, and they'll charge you $25 a ticket to get it, and so it's going to make more money than. Yeah.
Dolby theaters too.
Yeah, it'll be 3D Dolby IMAX, THX. Smell-o-vision, shake your seat movies where you put on VR glasses in order to watch the whole thing in 360 and you're moving in your seat, all the way around like you're on a flight chair. and you'll
Okay,
pay $30 for it.
I got
But once that,
I got a question for you, Kevin. As far as television sets, used to be you'd buy a TV and that's the way it was. Okay. Now it's got some minimal apps on it, and it can, like my Vizio has, an Amazon app.
TV apps are a virus, but go on.
Okay, and it does every once in a while my television reboots, right? My old SD Magnavox never rebooted, and our cell phones went from the brick that Craig Ship used back in the day. He had like the first cell phone. Then they went to feature phones, which had apps and stuff, but they weren't really where we are now. And then you have smartphones, right? Where are televisions in that evolution cycle? What's the best analogy? Or do we have feature phone televisions, or do we have smart televisions?
We'll be covering this more on Monday, but we've got smart televisions. And the reason why we have smart televisions is because they took all of the operating systems they threw onto the mobile phones, and they're trying to shove them onto TVs.
I can't remember this, Alan. Did feature phones get software updates, like firmware updates, or were they set in stone when you bought them?
They sort of got software updates.
Okay, so
I believe you had to bring them back into the store, and they'd plug them in somewhere in the back room for half an hour. But you could get upgrades. You had to get upgrades in some cases.
As far as I'm concerned, smart TVs are still a virus. It's so insane because you don't need them. What I want is just a dumb, stupid screen where there's just nothing, and I never get it.
Stupid dumb.
Kevin, here's the
Stupid
problem.
dumb.
Kevin, here's the problem with that, though. By that analogy, we actually used to have smart televisions. Because our televisions also used to be our tuner, not just the CRT. They've always been both the tuner and the CRT.
Right.
Now
That's
the
true.
equivalent of the tuner and the CRT is the smart television and the display.
Right. Right.
Now, you can say that
So
we
we're
should have
going
evolved
to a-
past that, but
Yeah.
people still think of television as both the tuner component, which is no longer really a tuner, but that's another story, as well as the CRT component, which is no longer a CRT, but that's another story.
But TVs still have a tuner, Alan. Mine, I plug the
Yeah,
coax
that's what
right
I'm
into it.
saying. I have digital.
Kevin, you just advocated for a dumb display.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, Kevin, I think you want
yeah,
a
and
component system. You could get like an Apple
Yeah,
TV,
I
or you
want
can
a
get
dumb
an
screen, and I
Android
want to attach a
TV,
digital tuner
or a
to it.
Chrome
Right,
box,
and
or
my point
your
is
cable
that
box.
most
Is it-
people still think of televisions as having a tuner.
Pam.
Why don't you just buy a monitor?
When you say just buy a
Because you can't
monitor,
get 100-inch
I mean,
monitors.
yeah, I mean, I want them big.
You can't.
What is
yeah.
the
Why?
The
difference?
problem is you
What do
can't.
you mean you want a big? You can't sit next to it.
No, what I want a TV-sized dumb monitor.
Question,
Okay.
question,
I-
guys.
Wait.
Go ahead,
Real
Pam.
quick.
Pam.
Real quick. Okay. My family room is a rather large room in
Okay.
a rather large, relatively large house, right? We have a 50-inch television,
Right.
and it's here, right? And our couch is here. If it was much bigger than that, we would have to be out on the back patio to
In the casita.
yeah. So technically, I mean, I know a little bit about your situation. You live in a rather, limited spot. So how big do you want the fucking monitor? Sorry,
Big.
You used a bad.
No, I mean,
I did.
no. There's nothing wrong with that. No,
Once Michael said dongle, all bets are off. I mean,
But how big do you want it? Seriously.
really,
A big-
shouldn't it depend on the distance between the viewer and the device?
Yes,
I mean, my
yes, it
32-inch TV is like a yard from my face. That's my computer monitor and my television. It's fine. I don't need anything bigger. I wouldn't want it any bigger. If it was across the living room floor and I'm on a couch and maybe there's multiple people in there, different story. Then you want the 60-inch. then bigger's better, right, Pam?
You can't get a you can't get a 60-inch monitor.
I wouldn't want it a yard from me. Sure, I could.
No, but I'm talking to Kevin. I mean,
But-
how much bigger?
Kevin,
than,
what is the difference between a
Nick-
television set and a monitor in 2015? Other than a television set always has a coax input and a monitor doesn't, and a monitor
Television
may or may
set-
not have speakers, whereas the TV
Dan,
always
Dan,
does. What's the
Yeah,
difference?
here's the difference. The television set has a tuner. A tuner.
No, but he doesn't want the tuner. He just wants a monitor. So can't you buy a 60-inch monitor?
No, because there's almost
No.
no demand for those things.
No, you can't.
Right.
It's much easier to buy a TV. Yeah.
Kevin wants what nobody else.
No, wait a minute. All I'm saying is that I want. Okay, no. No,
Right,
all
too
I'm
few.
saying is all I'm saying here is that I would like a very big screen that is a TV, but without the tuner on the TV itself. If I want
Then
to
it's not a
attach,
TV.
Just for our viewers,
Right,
a quick note to our viewers: Kevin is a peculiar type of eccentric geek found only in Georgia. Go ahead, Kevin.
okay, hold on. I can't be the only person on Earth who just wants a TV that doesn't have the apps.
You're-
Maybe
you're
I'm not
not, Kevin.
describing.
Actually, Kevin,
I just don't want the
I'm the
apps.
same way you
That's
are.
You
You
all
don't
I
have to
want.
use them
Just
though,
no
Kevin. I mean,
apps.
it's
Everything else is fine. The tuner's
they can
fine.
throw the
I
apps
just
on,
want
but they don't
the
have to
apps.
use
That's
them.
all I
No
don't.
imagination.
But no. Here's the deal: they're putting the apps on. They're probably paid to put the apps on. Probably Amazon pays them to put the app on. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is.
Well,
Maybe they just
I
do it
know
for free.
there's
You don't
payola
have
for
to
these
use them. I
apps.
never use them. I tried them. I've got the Netflix app and the other app and blah blah, and they all
Right.
suck. And they're like
Right.
1980s, so I don't use them. Although I will say that,
they mostly suck because the remote is this big.
and you're
right?
like,
And
search.
Yeah, you can't type in the title of the show you want.
That's
Yeah,
how. Yeah, I'm
that's
supposed to
what it
find.
Sucks.
Okay, the
Give it
West
up, Dan.
Wing,
That sucks, too.
THE, but in my case, I just, I have my television set is my second monitor on this system, and then I got the laptop, and then I got the other computer and stuff. But
Yeah, nobody else works that way either, Dan.
I know that's why there's a
There
demand
are
for
a couple
Apple
more
TV
people
and
that
Android
want
TV and
Kevin's setup that want
Roku.
then want your setup.
My setup is badass.
I think you're right, Alan.
You all should admire me and
Your setup
replicate
is
me.
ghetto, Dan.
A word I will
Just-
never eschew.
And-
And
Everything
yet,
else
it costs a lot of
apps.
money.
I got probably 20 grand sitting here, yeah, in audio and visual stuff in front of me.
Yeah, see?
Within arm's reach, because I'm a captain of a dying industry, a lowly tabloid newspaper publisher.
But if
Okay.
it dies slower than you do, it doesn't matter.
His hemorrhoids
True.
will
It's
die.
like running from a black. It's like running from a black bear. You only have to be faster than the
I just said that
slowest.
today to somebody.
You only have to be
I was
faster than the
explaining this
slowest
to
person in
my
the group.
friend that I went grizzly bear hunting with my brother, and my brother said, "Look, I don't need to run faster than the grizzly. I only need to run faster than you.
Exactly right.
So come on and go hunting with me."
So anyway, another CES store. I'll tell you, I posted one thing about this TV. It was pretty impressive from, I think, Sony Bravia, and it was 0.2 inches thick. It's thinner than their phones. That's thin. Only Michael Ellis is thinner than the new Bravia TVs. But then I saw this camera. Craig has pre-ordered one.
You know, hang on. It's pretty easy to be thinner than phones. Our phones these days have more than just a display crammed into them.
I think
So
a
saying that a
60-inch
TV
television
is
set.
thinner than a phone really is not saying anything.
I think a 0.2-inch thick television set is impressive. We're finally getting to where they are like a picture you hang on the wall, which was promised in the 80s.
With no apps.
Yes. No
You
apps.
hang on.
Everything else, just no apps.
All right, so there's this camera.
Except that Sony Bravias all do have apps. I believe all of the Sony devices that are coming out are coming out with Android TV.
Yeah, I think so.
Uh,
Built in.
Oh wait, are we talking at all about the Sony Walkman?
We can in a sec. Let me do this real quick thing. This is a 4K camera with a 1-inch sensor. So Craig
Oh
shipped
God.
order this thing, right? And but here's the deal. This just shows you. This was a weird story. So I'm looking at this thing, and at the top here, at the time it said $1,099, right? So $1,100, and it says 4K camera with 1-inch sensor. And then here it says this is the 4K camera with 1-inch sensor. It all over the place. It said at 3. Oh my God, no thanks. So anyway, you go down in the specs, and I saw this on B&H, and it says here imaging sensor is 1/2.3 inches, which is about, I think, 0.43 or 0.44 inches. So that is not a 1-inch sensor. So it looks like they took the previous iteration of this camera that wasn't 4K, it was 1080p, and that they just sort of copied and pasted this in here. Then I got an email from them, just I think yesterday, touting the camera, directing me to a site that showed the same thing. 1 inch, but then not 1 inch. So I call Sony, and I say, ask him about the discrepancy, and I get some guy, I forget his name, and he says to me, "Oh wow, let me check." So he checks. He says, "Call me back." So he calls me back after checking with the supervisor, and he says, "We've verified that it is 1 inch, and the site's wrong, and we'll fix it immediately." Right? This is like 4 days ago. So I said, "Okay." So then he says, "Have you bought the camera?" I said, "No, my friend Craig bought it on a pre-order from B&H. I'm mulling it over. I'm not sold on it. I want XLR inputs and stuff. I want a more higher-end camera." And he said, "Well, you shouldn't buy it from B&H because any third party, you don't get the Sony warranty." I said, "Wait a minute. You're saying that if I buy from any third-party retailer, you don't get the Sony warranty?" He's like, "No, you don't get it. You get a warranty from a third party." I said, "Okay." So I called B&H. I said, "Listen, I got a question for you." Because I asked them about the 1/2 versus 1 inch. And the guy said, "I don't have a clue." And he said, they don't have one in stock. He said that that's BS. He didn't abbreviate it, though. And he said that you do get the warranty. It's in the box. You get a 1-year warranty. So I called back, talked to a supervisor. I said, "Was I misled by your guy who called me and said that you don't get a warranty if you don't buy it from Sony?" And he said, "Oh, well, if they do a package deal which includes an extended warranty, then it's going to be a third." I said, No. I said, I specifically asked him like 5 times that, and he said, "You don't get a Sony warranty if you buy from a third party." Because I knew about the aftermarket, extended warranties. That wasn't the issue. And he kept dodging the question. It was really just frankly, a sleazy team running that thing. And I just wanted to call them out. And then he said, the supervisor said, "Well, B&H is selling it. We're not even selling it yet. And if you look on the site, it says, 'Let me know when it's available.' They don't have it for sale." And he said, "How come they can't sell it for $9.99? We're selling it for $1,099. I said, "Can't they sell it for whatever the hell they want? They buy it from you. If they want to do a loss leader, who cares?" And he said, "No, they're an authorized dealer. They have to, he said, well, B&H, they're probably going to have to call your friend Craig and tell him, I'm sure they're going to call him back and say that the price has gone up. They have to charge $1,099. And I was like, well, that's absurd. I mean, so you have price fixing built into your model, that's okay. You just, everyone has to charge the same thing. Nobody can be competitive. How does that benefit the consumer?" And he again twisted it. And then he's like,
Dan,
"Yep."
is this a surprise to you?
No, it's sleazy though. I wanted to call him out though.
So the fact that every retailer does this doesn't bother you? You decided to pick on this one company one day?
Yeah. No and yes. Yeah, it bothers me. And yeah, I'm going to pick on him. Because the guy freaking lied to me. He tried to get me to buy it from Sony store. I said, well, I'm going to buy it from the Sony store. It's $100 cheaper on B&H. And B&H probably ship it quicker. And if Amazon, I wouldn't buy it from B&H if Amazon had it. Because Amazon, I get free shipping, and it's like, 3 hours later, it's at my doorstep. Apologizing for taking so long. I mean, Amazon's got the shipping thing down. But anyway, I was just really unimpressed with the sleaziness.
You're apologizing for somebody taking long?
No, that's not what I said. I said I was being sarcastic. I said Amazon. Oh, that was
a dig, Dan.
That was a dig just then. It's going to be one of those
He catches
shows.
up.
Okay. So anyway.
Every show is one of
But the funny thing, they told me that they were going to inform B&H. This supervisor I'm talking to. We're going to inform B&H that they can't sell it for $9.99 when we're selling for $1,099. Then in the end, I looked today. B&H has it for $9.99, and Sony has reduced their price to $9.99. So B&H won, Sony 0. Or probably the guy was an idiot and didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and they told B&H they're going to reduce the price to $9.99, and so they did. So all that happened. That's 5 minutes of your life you can never have back. So you were going to mention
It was more like 10.
Well, I was rounding down. It's the host
And I'm missing
prerogative.
all of those minutes.
So was it Kevin? You were going to talk about the other thing that escapes me?
The Sony Walkman, the NWZ ZX1 high resolution audio player.
That's $1,100, right?
It's some ridiculous amount of dollars. I've seen several different articles about it, and the prices are anywhere between ridiculous and ludicrous. It basically a super high-priced iPod, but like 5 years too late. Anyways, but it has Android on it, so I'm sure that it'll get covered on Monday in the show Our Android Week.
I can tell you this though, if you I am an audiophile. I'm a singer. I did karaoke from 1995 until like a year or two ago, whatever. And I've got a really good ear. And I can tell you that if you play an MP3, and I was doing a test. We had a JBL line array. I mean, very high-end, very expensive system in a club. And I was setting the system up, and we were blasting it before we opened, right, just to test it with the owner. I played an MP3 through my laptop. There was a good quality sound, and he listened to it. Then I put an actual DVD in and played the music video with the same song. It was dramatically better. The owner's jaw dropped. He's like, "Oh my God!" It was full. Because that speaker system was capable of producing all of the frequencies in the full spectrum of that audio, and a DVD typically is compressed less than a CD, and a CD is compressed less than an MP3. And there's a couple services out there that are like iTunes or the others where you can buy like a 384 kilobits per second or whatever version of songs. I'm not sure. I think there's a couple that are popular. And then I think is it not Bob Dylan?
Neil Young.
Neil Young has a product
Bono.
that's finally live now, and
Bono.
he's promoting this because he was a big opponent of MP3s because he said it dumbed down the quality, and he's right. And for him to be able to tell at his age after having floor wedges slammed at him for 50 years is impressive, to say the least. But there is a difference, and so and there's a market, and it's a small market, which is why this is a premium price product that will have a fairly small, comparatively, to the original Walkman or whatever, audience, but that will pay. There is a whole ecosystem out there for people who will pay whatever amount of money if it sounds better. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, two things. One, there's definitely a difference between the MP3s and the high quality audio files they're talking about. The question is, the prices that I've been seeing are between like $900 and $1,200 for this device. So, and you're paying for that just to play music and not to make phone calls as well with it. Whereas you have a device that's with you all the time anyway that can play music and make the phone calls. So you have to make the case to have that separate device. But the second part is, if you're going to make a device that plays music and you want it to be elite, then don't give it the name Walkman, because Walkman was for the masses. The whole point of the Walkman was that everyone could carry this around, and now you've turned the term Walkman into a premium product. I don't know why you would do that. Why not name it something new and then come out with a low-level, high quality audio where it just does the bells and whistles, or maybe they work it through and they go through their supply chain and they figure out some way to get some lower cost product and then call that the Walkman. Instead, you have this premium thing that now people think, okay, well, and they name it Walkman. They think, oh, everyone hears it and say, oh, cool, Walkman. I used to have a Walkman. I could afford that. And then they look at this thing and say, no way can I afford this.
I would dispute one thing. Let me go to some comments here. The Walkman was a premium cassette player. I remember because there were many cassette players out there, and I had a Sony Walkman, and I was a kid, and so it was a lot of money for me at the time, or it seemed so. But it was definitely vastly superior in build quality and audio quality, and it was higher in price than you could buy cheap
It was
stuff.
higher in price, but when they launched the Walkman, the first Walkman was the first one of its kind, and was kind of, as Kevin said, it was, letting you carry around your audio.
Right.
It was a very personal device.
All right, a couple comments here. We've got George Cozy. By now, the TV sound system, phone, home automation, home security should be just dumb peripherals connected to the central household computer. Don't get a bigger screen, get a virtual reality headset. That's an interesting take on it. Cybernaut says, resolution. My old Sony 22-inch CRT, stands for cathode ray tube, the old SD sets, could do around 2K by something. The 32-inch TV I just bought will only go up to 1600 or whatever. JVC makes a TV that comes out with a Roku stick. It's a dumb TV without the stick. Wendell says, I see Kevin's point. Smart TVs have a bunch of junk integrated into them that will eventually become obsolete. We hook up Chromecasts, AV receivers, cable boxes, etc. Those devices replace the tuner. So why buy a TV with a tuner or a smart TV if you had a choice? He says, I prefer to add on technology with a component at a time.
The reason why, hang on.
Go
let
ahead,
me
go
answer
ahead.
The reason why. The reason why boils down to a device known as the Logitech Harmony. People really have always hated having to turn on 5 devices to do one thing. So nobody ever really liked turning on their receiver and then turning on their speakers and then now turning on their cable box and turning on the TV and then dealing with 4 remotes just to watch a freaking show.
That is a hassle, and I have to do it because I have, like, this is the studio, right? So I have, like, my sound mixer. I've got my speaker that's on or off. I got my mixing. Well, I got a panel that cuts all that on.
Right, but we already declared your system ghetto.
It's actually a premium system. Like,
Okay, we declared your system a premium ghetto.
Like if the new Walkman were a system. Okay, so Wendell says, I prefer to add on technology component at a time that I can replace, upgrade as needed, versus having to replace an entire TV just to get the new technological thing of the day. I'm the same way. I'm in the Wendell camp, although I do concede Alan's point that if you're doing a mass market appeal consumer product, most people don't want that. And so we are the audiophiles who are willing to deal with that. Wendell says, to Cy, yes, TVs are designed for what is available as a broadcast. Monitors are designed for what is available from a computer's graphics card. So monitors will always have higher resolution and higher prices. And I will tell you this is true because if I lay the paper out on my set, I got my TV was 32 inches, and then this one is about 28 inches. So they're close, but this one's wider. This is 16 by 9. This one's a little wider. I'm not sure what, but they're both 1080p. The text looks way better on the monitor than it does on the television set. So, and I watch the TV. If I'm watching Netflix, I'll put on the TV because it's a bigger screen. It would look better on the smaller screen, obviously, because the smaller you make it, the less pixelated it is. And then comments from YouTube folks. Edward O'Dwyer comments, nice! Exclamation point. Thank you. And then Mehdi says, Kevin is not alone. I don't want to pay for a tuner and speaker I'll never use. Yeah, speakers are on monitors, and they always suck. Computer monitor speakers, and I never use them, but you're paying for them. But it's probably cheap, which is why they suck. So it probably doesn't impact the price that much. But does it record 4K to the memory card? Asking about that Sony camera. I believe it does. But you have to use an SDHC, at least a Class 10 card. And always buy up, because even sometimes if it says like this needs at least a Class 4 or Class 6 card, that refers to the throughput of the SD card, the capability of how fast it can get the video program into the card without getting a bottleneck. If you get the lower end ones, then sometimes you'll get bottlenecked even at the recommended card. I had that with the Canon Vixia, which is a camera I used to use when I first started the show. So always don't be stupid. I mean, don't go to Radio Shack and, get some monster crap. Get do your homework, but get the highest you can get, and you'll have better luck. So anyway, okay, so that's all obviously exciting based on Alan's last internal chat comment. So anything else from CES? I think we basically covered everything that happened at CES. Obviously, I
We
didn't
covered
have
it all. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing Cadeas's report. I think one of the things I found most interesting is that most of the reports I heard from CES were more about people finding other people there rather than the technology they were running into. So that I thought was kind of interesting. Was to me, CES ended up being, just a stream of people doing selfies with friends of theirs. I'm like, this is interesting. You all traveled to Las Vegas for, to take pictures of yourselves.
The Verge has an article showing the official brothel, because they're in Vegas, right? So not all tech shows, not all things are born.
Dan, prostitution is illegal in Las Vegas.
It is? Isn't
Yes.
there like somewhere in Nevada you can, get serviced?
The rest of Nevada,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not
Las Vegas city
itself.
limits, it's not allowed.
Okay. I stand
Well,
corrected.
it's illegal.
And it really shows because there's never any prostitution going on.
I am shocked to learn there's gambling going on in the establishment. Okay, so gaming. It's gaming.
Gaming. Right.
Okay, so next up is I don't know if you want to call it a tech story or whatever. It's not a tech story, but it's
It's not a tech story at all.
But
it's-
that doesn't stop us.
correct. That's why I was joking, but not really joking. I said because I knew Alan was going to be late, and I said, "Oh, it'll work out because I want to talk about the crazy terrorist story," and I found some wacky Google angle that they contributed money so the magazine could print to kind of sneak it into the show. And Alan's not going to be
Which
here to
makes it
bitch
not at
about
all
it.
about Google Plus, by the
Right.
way.
It's about Google. The top heading it says
That's getting closer.
it says Google or Google Plus topics. Okay, so President Obama has proposed making community college free, and he did a video on Facebook, and then he's been talked about in speeches, and they did a thing on the internet here. And what it says is this would be it's an interesting program, and I think it's about, they said $8,900 on average, or $3,800, which is surprising because I thought the average cost for a high school or for primary school is way higher than that, closer to like 10 or 12. But I'm in Northern Virginia, so here, it's very wealthy counties, so it's different than in Appalachia or something. But what he said was the students have to maintain, they have to at least attend half-time, right? You have to maintain a 2.5 GPA, which I think is like a C+, and you have to make steady progress toward completing your program. The community colleges will be expected to offer programs that are either academic programs that fully transfer credits to local public four-year colleges and universities, so they're not scamming you with useless courses that won't transfer, or occupational training programs with high graduation rates that lead to in-demand degrees and certificates. Community colleges must adopt promising and evidence-based institutional reforms to improve student outcomes. The federal government would provide 3/4 of the funding, and the states would have to provide the rest. And the participating states and also expanding technical training programs. The president also proposed the new American, whatever it's called, which will expand innovative, high-quality technical training programs across the country, specifically programs that have strong employer partnerships and include work-based learning opportunities, also known as paid internships, with a tech focus, provide accelerated training, and accommodate part-time work. So it's interesting. Basically, what he's saying is that the country, like every country except basically ISIS, I think, controlled areas, which have closed schools, they've decided to make elementary, middle, high school compulsory and to pay for it. You can opt to go to a private school, or you can go to the public school and you don't have to pay for it. You might have to pay for lunch or whatever. So basically, he wants to extend that for 2 more years. Instead of just 12 years, it'll be 14 years. But he's got some caveats where it has to be stuff. In other words, he's trying to push to get everyone on a path to a bachelor's degree. And clearly, this is a populist program. I'm not sure what's going to cost, but he says it might impact 9 million people. A lot of the lower income folks can get Pell Grants and other things. So this is actually more appealing toward not like poverty but more like lower middle or middle, whatever. But this is obviously newsy, but it was introduced, and then of course the terrorist thing happened, so nobody's paying attention to this. But this would otherwise have been a huge story. So I wanted to give it a little FaceTime. What do you think, Michael? I think you were a critic, and then Alan, if you could take over for a couple minutes, I'll be right back. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, okay, sorry, I was trying to make sure I wasn't muted. I'm a critic because I think this is a business the federal government shouldn't be in. That's probably no surprise to people that have heard me say things like this before, but...
Hang on one second. There are no federal community colleges I'm aware of. These are state community colleges. They're paying for it. And I just saw a study, and then I will leave for a moment. I just saw a study of of public universities versus private universities, and they found that the public universities, also known as government-run schools, cost about half of what the private ones did, and that there was no discernible advantage in going to, on average. I mean, obviously, if you're hiring someone and they have a Harvard law degree versus whatever, but
we're not talking about universities here.
Go ahead. I think Michael's point was the government should be in the business of education. I'm just making a point that the government-run schools at the postgraduate at the collegiate level are half the cost and just as good as the private non-government schools.
I don't mean to be putting words into Michael's mouth here, but I think what he said very clearly was he doesn't believe the federal government should be in the business of running colleges, which you then said the federal government isn't in the business of running colleges.
Which is correct.
So we agree.
No, I'm
so
saying
Dan, you're in agreement with me, which is what you should be.
But I think the federal government provides some funding for state-run schools.
They do, and that's precisely my point. The federal government involves itself in things it has no business being in. The states should run the community colleges. The states and the communities should run the community colleges. We don't need the federal government being involved in this. The community colleges have some problems, but we're better off having 50 experimental incubators figuring out the best possible solutions with creative innovators than we are having the federal government trying to prescribe one solution across the entire nation for some business they know nothing about.
Michael, I think
and that's why I don't want the federal government getting involved in something in more detail.
Michael, I'm with you on the 50 incubator thing. I'm totally with you on that. But what this is simply doing is saying they're going to cut a check for it and let each state do their thing.
That's not how it works, Dan. Yeah, when they start getting involved in cutting a check, they also hold checks back.
Pam, exactly. Go ahead.
Then they get to stipulate policy. And as soon as they get to stipulate
that's exactly what they've done on the university level.
Exactly.
It's just, so, I mean, you're right historically in a lot of ways. I get your point.
It's like,
and the 55...
it's like you're saying they get to cut a check, but that check comes with baggage.
Strings.
It's just like when Carter was president and they went to 55 saves lives, and it was a 55 max speed limit, and they would, if you didn't do that, and then they did the same thing with the drinking age to 21, because I remember D.C. was the last place to go from 18 to 21.
So you're arguing our point for us.
I'm acknowledging that in other areas, they tax the citizens of the states, and then they say we're going to give you the money back, but you have to have a 55 speed limit or you won't get any highway funding. You have to
Dan,
raise your drinking age.
Dan.
You won't get any highway funding. So I get your point. Go ahead, Alan.
Go pee.
Dan?
Go pee.
gotta pee. I gotta pee.
Let's all say Dan's wrong while he's peeing.
Anything else on this subject, or can we move on?
No, well, okay. I wanted to add one thing.
He probably can't do that right.
Oh, great. No, what I wanted to add was I'm one of the people who's kind of I like the idea, but there's a big issue that I have with it, which is that we're not promoting the. I mean, whether there's money shoved at it from the federal government or whether there's not. There's not enough. I think there's too much talking specifically about community colleges, and not enough about the trades. That's all I would say. Sometimes they interact. Sometimes they go in the same way. But specifically the trades. There is a specific, really, really big gap that's going to be happening in the near future, where we need skilled people in the trades. And we're not getting it. Like about
Absolutely
1 in 5.
right.
We need electricians and plumbers
Yes.
and nurses
Yes.
even.
Yes. About 1 in 5.
And all of that
about
is
1 in
true, Kevin.
But 1 in 5
But
are
then we got to
between
get rid of the
55 and
freaking
64.
union. First, we got to get rid of the unions so that we can get more people into the trades, because all that is controlled by the unions. Who gets in and who gets the journeyman? Who gets the apprenticeships and all that stuff? It's all this big nepotistic thing. It's not like I can go and learn how to be a plumber. I have to go through the specific corridor to get there. So you're absolutely right, but we have to figure out a way. And I'm not necessarily saying we have to get rid of the unions, but we have to maybe make the unions understand that it behooves them to open it up a little bit and to allow, that education to happen on maybe a larger scale than they can provide.
Right, and that's where I would like Obama to use his bully pulpit to bring up that issue and keep hammering it home that we need more trades. We need more trades. We've got to have them. Lots of people are going to be retiring in the near future. If he can start talking about it early and often, I would be a lot happier than hearing about what's going on.
But he doesn't need to try to create a federal program that funds 75% of the colleges in order to use the power of his bully pulpit.
That's not really what excites me about this.
This is not about influencing the outcome. This is about influencing all of the educational system above grade 12.
What we don't know that. I mean, that's speculation from a Fox News viewer, Michael Ellis.
Well, it's not speculation.
I'm saying that, but you don't know about this
program. It is what it is. They're grabbing 75% of the funding for community colleges by doing this in the places where they'll have an impact. And that is a way for the federal government to influence the curriculum and the political structure and the way that they do tenure and the way they hire teachers. All of that stuff comes along with the strings that they put on those checks that they give. You know exactly that's how it'll work, because that's how they've done it in universities.
We'll see the details. The devil's in the details, and you may be completely correct. I would add to Pam's point about the unions. My biggest gripe, and all of her gripes were legitimate, my biggest gripe against the unions is that they tend to reward seniority over competence. And the best example of that is that wonderful movie Waiting for Superman, which showed Michelle Rhee, who was the former superintendent, was the then superintendent of the DC school system, and she showed the stack of forms she had to fill out to fire an incompetent teacher. Basically, you have to be, videotaped on YouTube administering heroin to a student while having sex with the student who's passed out in order to get fired, without filling out all these forms. It was just absurd, and I get that. And I think competency should be rewarded, and you should have principals who are powerful and can hire and fire teachers. And then if the principal's incompetent, the board can fire the principal. But I'm all for local control, totally. And I totally get the legitimate fears, which have been well earned from Michael. And my Fox News viewer dig was a dig, but he's not wrong in his analysis, in his
Of course I'm not.
His apprehensive view of this is well earned by previous government programs. That said, I am excited about this for the same reasons Kevin is. I wasn't excited so much about the funding. I was excited about the emphasis on credits that will transfer, as opposed to bogus credits. And I hate the, you have to, I saw kids when I was at George Mason University, they were, taking bowling to get their PE credit. And I was like, what does that have to do with your communications or engineering degree or whatever? It's just a stupid money sucking hole class. Not to, I like bowling. I'm not particularly good at it, but, I was very excited about the trades. The trades are very exciting to me because we do need plumbers, and there's nothing wrong with being a plumber. I had a plumber here today. My water was out for 2 days. Let me tell you, nobody's ever enjoyed a shower like I did before the show. We need those guys, and there's nothing wrong with that, and they earn often more. That's a good career. Plumbers, electricians, all that stuff. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was going to say, people need to understand also about the trades that they're more technical and more difficult to do than ever before. It's not just ditch digging out there. They're using tools out there that people need to understand how those tools work. So it's not like saying going into the trades you're just trying to push people into grunt work. It's difficult sometimes.
And I would point out that at least from the brief quote that Dan read, this program is trying to do that. That it is trying to get community colleges to have what I think you're calling trade and what it sounds like the program is referring to as other skilled degree programs.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right on that, and I think that is a good point. I just wish I guess I would just like a different emphasis in the way he was saying it. That's all. But I think you're right. I think that's what it is pushing towards. But
we have a desperate need here, Kevin. You're exactly correct about this. But the states know this, and the states are working on it. But maybe if the federal government thinks there needs to be.
Whoa, Michael. The states are working
maybe
on
it's too broad to say the states are working on it. Some states are certainly working on it. Every state takes a different approach.
Virginia's working on it. I'll tell you what
Different
Virginia's
things.
doing. Virginia, a good friend of mine for years, he was an advertiser in every issue. He was a delegate here, and he advertised in every issue. Clay Athey, he's now a circuit court judge, so obviously he stopped advertising. But he did a bill that allowed community colleges in certain fields to offer 4-year degrees in certain like nursing and a couple other things that they're really having a problem staffing these positions. And I think that's fantastic because you can, and often my experience, like I went to Northern Virginia Community College, Central Virginia Community College, and in my experience, the professors or associate professors, whatever you call them there, they are often moonlighting professors from the universities in town trying to get, some extra money.
Sure they
and
are.
so they're just as talented in the community college class as they are at the university classroom, and they're fine, they're competent, but you're paying $4,000 a year instead of $25,000 a year, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, the biggest pushback, to get to Pam's argument, the biggest pushback against allowing a community college to offer a 4-year degree to get an actual bachelor's degree in like as a registered nurse or what have you was from the unions and from the universities because it's about business and it's about money. They're taking money from
for sure.
And there's the argument. This gets back to Michael's point: the government picking the winners and losers. But in this case, if you look at the cost of primary education versus community college, if community college is $3,800 a year, that is a hell of a lot less than we spend in elementary, middle, and high school in the United States. So it's really a good value even at that price. But if they can encourage more kids to, instead of, burning the Little Caesars in Ferguson, but instead going to the community college and pursuing a bachelor's degree, because it has to be a community college 2-year degree that is primed toward a bachelor's, right? There's a lot to like in this. I get Michael's objections, and they're sincere, and they're legitimate, and they're backed up by history, right? I'm not dismissing your objections, but there's a lot to like in this notion that in this day and age, you got to, even like to Kevin's point about the trades are becoming more technical. Look at an auto mechanic. Your car is a freaking computer now.
Yeah,
It's a
all
it's
sensors.
a collection of component computers. It's not it's not the old days where you could basically stand in the hood and work on stuff. So
Which is a very good argument for why we need community colleges and why community colleges should be broadly supported. But
Which
it's
is
not
what
an argument in favor of the federal government being the funding source.
I would like to add a side note to this. It's going to be interesting how they define what a community college is. In Georgia, there is a new thing that just happened a couple of days ago where the Board of Regents in Georgia made an announcement that two schools are going to be merging in Georgia. One is Georgia Perimeter and the other is Georgia State University. It's, to me, bizarre because Georgia Perimeter is a community college. And Georgia State University is a state university that offers bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs. So they're merging.
Is it a
those two
land grant
schools.
college?
What?
Was it a land grant college, Georgia State?
That I don't know.
Michael,
I mean,
That
it was,
might be a dumb question.
a
What?
land.
Explain what a land grant college is, Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. And actually, now that I've said it out loud, I might have been stupid to ask the question. But land grant colleges were established by Lincoln, where the federal government gave land to form a new educational institution if the state or the citizens of the territory gave similar resources to found a new university and spread university learning across the country.
talk about
as
a
the
blast
country
from the
grew westward.
past.
So,
Yeah,
So
and
let
of
me
course,
make sure-
I know about this because I attended a land grant college.
so let
Oh.
me make sure I got this straight. The federal government was granting money. Did I hear that right, Michael?
And who benefited from this, Michael? You attended
No.
one, right?
I know that I'm being trolled.
From
I
that
know that I'm being trolled here.
from that rabble
I'm trying to
rouser
recall that-
Abraham Lincoln of all people.
That was in a very different era of a much smaller federal government, and the federal government, by the way, acquired all of the land and needed a way to distribute it to the private sector or to the states, not
So
to the private sector.
basically,
in this
Lincoln
case,
was
but to
Hugo
the states.
Chavez.
Oh, it was to the private sector. Cornell and MIT were both land grant colleges.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. I attended Purdue University, and it is not a private school. It is a state university, state-funded university, and it was the land grant was provided by Abraham Lincoln in 1862, and John Purdue, who was a local wealthy man, I don't know how he had money, I don't recall that, gave I think 150 acres to match whatever the federal government provided to the university to start the college, and that's how he got the naming rights. It's really very similar to Citibank Stadium and other such naming rights
Okay,
deals.
So I've now done a quick reading on land grant colleges, i.e. I read their Wikipedia page. The term is somewhat deceptive, since it also refers to a bunch of colleges that received cash grants from the federal government, not just grants of land.
More evidence.
And I believe it was President Buchanan.
Let me answer.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Lincoln.
Yeah,
Let me answer
I
your
wasn't
question.
either, and I need to check the dates, but they mentioned Buchanan, not Lincoln. So
To answer your question,
That makes
Michael,
sense.
the Georgia State University is not a land grant university. The one in Georgia is University of Georgia, UGA. That one is a land grant one, and so is a school called
Okay.
University of North Georgia and also Fort Valley State University. Those
University
are the land
of
grant
Georgia.
ones.
Then I was
University of Georgia is even weirder.
Yeah.
The land grant college of a state grant. So it was founded in 17
Oh.
something
Yeah.
with state, essentially the same concept, but using state money, not federal
Mhm.
money.
Mhm.
Okay, let me
Well,
get some
and
comments real
the,
quick.
The notion of land grants came from England anyway, so this is an old concept.
All right, let me do some comments real quick here.
We've gone way off.
George Cozy says,
We're talking about community college.
I
Oh
personally,
yeah, because we never go off topic on this.
Right.
George,
you know,
go
you know,
ahead, Pam.
Kevin is actually from Canada, and he knows more about United States history, state history, everything the United States than I do.
And
We
everything.
have to study. We literally studied the U.S. in high school. We studied it.
So do we. Several years of
We
it.
literally do too.
Every
That doesn't
zero.
stop.
Yeah.
It's a national travesty that we don't study Canadian history as much as everyone looks at us. Okay, so George Cozy says, I personally
Guy
believe that,
Fawkes Day.
I personally believe that the government has an.
Yes, England.
I personally believe,
Oh, sorry.
says George Cozy, I personally believe that the government has an essential role in education. It is the guarantor that education shouldn't be about profit, but about education. It also has an essential role in ensuring that degree standards are maintained and uniform across the country. You lost me on the last part. I think, I don't know if you want national standards that, while the thought is great, the reality is that you end up dumbing stuff down.
And the university's self-regulated in that regard already with accreditation standards.
And then George adds, "Oh, great! Now I have the image."
Accreditation standards are slippery.
And then George adds, "Oh, great! Now I have the image of Dan joyfully taking a shower in my head." And I think, Alan, your comment was about the TV thing. And then Wendell says, "George, I agree the federal government should have a role in accreditation to ensure that the education quality is standardized across the nation. But that is the limit of how it should be involved. Any more than that creates problems." As a former high school teacher, I can tell you that accreditation is usually actually regional. There's like the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, and there's, because frankly, the needs in Montana and Los Angeles and Fairfax County, Virginia, and Dallas, Texas are likely different.
The needs in Georgia for accreditation are very specific. We need to cheat.
You need what?
We need to cheat. That's our accreditation strategy. That's
And
what
I
we
think
need
that's
to
the
do.
problem with current accreditation organizations.
If you
is
look,
that they're not federal. They're not, technically they're regional, but they're regional associations of the colleges that they accredit. So you're kind of self-accrediting.
It's much akin to a bar association, right?
Oh yeah, because the bar association is immaculate.
I think that's Dan's point.
No, that's my point. Dan just tried to hold up these regional accreditation groups as good things.
No, I think he was saying the same thing you are, that it's questionable because they're the fox is guarding the hen house.
it's messed up sometimes.
Why are both of us arguing about what Dan said and he's just shutting up?
Because
Okay,
we're doing
so-
such a good job.
Indeed. Okay, so next up is Comcast says it will sell gigabit cable service this year. Okay, so this is about, I think Broadcom has some new technology. This is probably all about the Time Warner Cable merger because they want to do, and also it's about competing with Google Fiber. But this is very
That's what I was gonna
interesting.
say.
Apparently, you can do gigabit over coax. And so Comcast says they're going to do it. And they're going to, this year in 2015, they're going to start rolling out an option for gigabit. I think they have an option for a few hundred megabits, and it's like either $300 or $400 a month. That's their peak. But apparently you can do this with this new algorithm. So that's interesting. And it shows the power of competition because Google is running a fiber, AT&T is doing a fiber thing, and there are other smaller ones that don't get as much press as Google and AT&T. And I still think it's a tough sell because to most people they use the computer. I mean, not to our audience, but your general internet user, they're on Facebook and they check their email and they want to browse the web and look at porn and do Netflix. And 50% 15, 20, 30 down is fine. I have 30
Not
down.
necessarily in that order.
Indeed. But I have, I think mine is like 30 down and 10 up. And
See, Dan, you're missing the point here. It's not just that people want to watch porn. People want to make porn.
thus the gigabit.
Thus the gigabit. And that's one of the problems with this service, is that it's asynchronous. So while all of the current gigabit offerings have both gig down and gig up, DOCSIS 3.1 doesn't support high bandwidth up.
Now, DSL has historically supported the same up and down, right? But it was lower. But
Not really, no. I've seen DSL still all over the board.
because I know that recently, I think in one of these stories, I don't know if it was this one or one of the stories that I looked at about this, they said that DSL did have a gigabit potential as well, and I wonder if that would support the upward parity.
Possibly. And I think it's important to note that the Google Fiber experiment and the Chattanooga experiment, both of them still have open questions about, well, why do we care about high-speed upload? But we're beginning to see answers there. And until we try, we're not going to.
I used to run a T1, Alan, and we started, it was in the dial-up days, and we had a T1 line, which could accommodate a bunch of people. And then we ended up with like a dozen or 15, 20 T1 lines. But that was copper, and that, I think, had a parity between the up and down speeds. So what's changed? Why can't cable offer 30 down and 30 up? Because even Comcast really high download speeds still have a much lower upload speed.
It's not that copper doesn't allow for it. The way that T1 allowed for the same speeds up and down is it had the same number of wires up and down. That's basically what it boiled down to. And I'll be honest, this is not my field. Kevin might be able to speak to this better than I can.
Okay.
But
I don't know that.
Weren't you?
I
mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I thought you were actually in this
He's
industry.
totally just put him on the spot.
Not really.
Okay,
I studied computer engineering technology in school.
No, I really wasn't trying to put you on the spot. My apologies. My understanding is that they basically dedicate more of the bandwidth to down because they need to. And because their central plant was designed that way. The central plant is designed to send video out. And sending data out kind of is a side effect of that. And getting data back, they needed a very limited back channel for video. So there was always some component of that to come back. But relative to how much was going down, it was much smaller. So they've never planned for that. And DOCSIS 3.1 continues that, mostly because they don't want to change the central plant. And they don't see that need. Whereas the people who are deploying gigabit fiber, they see the potential for that need. That's the difference here. There's some technical limitation, but it's not a real technical limitation. It's historic more than anything else.
Okay, so that explains that. And for someone who doesn't know anything, I think you did pretty well, Alan. That's why you're a coveted panelist and co-host, because you can basically bullshit your way through any topic. You see, it's a series of tubes. All right, so next up is...
It is a series of tubes.
I know.
The fact that technical people make so much fun of him, when he actually got it...
And wasn't he ultimately vindicated on the corruption thing after death?
I don't know. I don't care.
Not that a posthumous vindication is necessarily the best way to go, but...
Is he actually dead?
Isn't he dead? It was a lot. Ted Stevens, Alaska senator?
I don't know. I guess it was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're back on our Vegas theme, a series of
You
tubes.
think I care about dead politicians?
No, but they're
Next.
superior to.
He did pass away in 2010. Yeah.
All right, next up is this 22-year-old kid who created a website.
This 22-year-old kid who has created a website to help people violate contract law.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're on the same page. So here's the deal. I actually contributed money to him, knowing full well that he doesn't have probably doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. Basically, what this is 22-year-old who created a website. There's a long-standing history of crazy pricing for flights. Let's say I wanted to go visit Pam, and I'm flying out to L.A. or whatever, Menifee, and the flight to L.A. is $400 or whatever it is. A flight to Menifee might be $600. So instead of flying to Menifee, I take a flight with a connector in Menifee, and then it goes to LA, and I simply get off in Menifee and don't get back on. And so I've saved $200. And I forget the technical term for this or whatever it is. But he created a website that would figure all this out and give you the cheapest way to go from point A to point B. So it's very populist. It's great for the consumer. But the companies, Orbitz and United Airlines, I think Orbitz is the exclusive online provider and they're in bed together or whatever. It's clearly in violation of their terms of service. So they sued him and then he sued back or whatever the legal thing is. So he did a GoFundMe project and asked for $60,000 in legal fees so he could defend himself or sue them. I'm not sure which. And I think I did like 10 or 20 bucks, whatever. But I don't. As Alan said, I think he's totally legally, technically in the wrong. But I'm like, I hope you win because it's good for the consumer. So it's a populist thing.
Are you coming to visit me? Did I miss something while I was gone?
Yeah, Thursday you invited me. Did you forget?
Oh. Yeah, well, you might want to fly into either Palm Springs or...
You promised the tacos, not the Taco Bell ones, but the real ones
Yeah,
with the cilantro.
but Menifee doesn't have an airport.
You
so,
promised the cilantro and the onions.
They're
Okay,
gonna
Alan.
Just push you out of the plane or what?
Absolutely. Only after I eat the onions. So Alan, I think we're on the same page. Do you have like a romantic attachment to the concept, but legally he has no legs to stand on whatsoever, right? He's basically scraping their website.
Well, it's not even just scraping their website, which is bad enough. It's that he's basically the contract. He's helping people break their contracts because the contract that you are purchasing for a flight is for a complete flight, and people are breaking that contract. Now, let's be honest. Smart airlines, what they're going to do to solve this is to make sure that those paths don't exist, and the way they're going to do that is by raising airline prices. This is, not rocket science here. I mean, they're already charging more to fly with one stop versus two stops, or versus a non-stop, which boggles my mind. Why anybody would pay extra for the inconvenience of transferring in Denver. But people seem to do it. So
Wait, I'm confused. Did I understand that right, Alan? You think they're charging more if you have a stop than if you do not have a stop?
every time I have tried to fly between New York and San Francisco,
Yeah.
the flights that stop in Denver, I'm trying to remember where Denver, all of the flights that transfer in Denver or Las Vegas that have a connection in Denver and Las Vegas cost more than the nonstop.
That makes no sense at all.
Of course it makes no sense. I mean, the only reason
The
why
entire-
is because they know
entire-
people are stupid.
But Alan, you
entire
agree that
pricing
while
system-
just before we go to Kevin, Alan, you agree that while we're both on the same page that what this kid's doing is illegal.
No,
We
I don't
would-
think what he's doing is illegal. I think he's helping people break contracts, but that's not
But
illegal.
I think he's violating terms of service, so it's illegal in a civil way, not criminally. But we both would totally use this or consider using this if you were going to do a stop. It makes me want to check his site out. I think a flight to California was like $260 or something, way cheaper than conventional ticketing prices. So I would take advantage of it, even though I think he's clearly violating the terms of service of the agreement, and they have definitely have the grounds for a civil action. Not illegal, but the grounds for a civil action is, I guess, the better term to use.
As always, that starts running into gray areas outside of the question at hand, but whatever.
It's too bad
That shouldn't stop us from discussing it at great length, though.
It's too bad the airlines will never use this as a kind of cue to have their prices make a little bit more sense.
It
Well, I
makes
just
sense
told
for
you
them.
what
They're
they
making
do.
money.
They'd raise the prices. They're not going to lower prices.
Yeah, they will and are raising prices, but their prices still aren't completely sensical.
That's only because they're still using Sabre technology from the 80s. I mean, really, if they could, they'd use modern technology and figure out where they could raise the prices better and prevent these sorts of things. And my personal observations are that they have prevented this sort of thing in a lot of cases.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this because I'm tired.
I was going to say, we all agree. Let's wrap this show.
Yeah, so we got two more quick fun topics. Dish's unleashing Sling TV, which they specifically said should not be confused with their other Sling things like Sling Box, yet they use the same brand name. And it's an internet TV service. It's going to cost $20 a month. It includes CNN, I think the Home and Garden channel, and ESPN, which is the Holy Grail, ESPN 1 and ESPN 2, or ESPN and ESPN 2. So this is yet another cord-cutting victory for folks who don't want to get traditional cable and they want to get everything over broadband. And I'm assuming, I don't know the details yet. I don't know if they released all of them, but I'm guessing you could watch. I don't know if you can watch it on mobile devices or what have you, but ESPN has always been the Holy Grail that's kind of kept the cable model afloat. Because if you wanted to watch the sporting events, you had to subscribe to, conventional cable. So, any thoughts on this? I think this is a really big deal. And we saw previous things like I think CBS has they released their thing. I can watch CNN on my phone. What I do when I'm driving, I don't watch it, but I turn it on and I put it through my Bluetooth thing. And, I just put it face down, so I'm not tempted to watch it while I'm driving, but I can listen. Like if there's breaking news, like there has been the last few days, if I'm in the car, I can follow CNN live. Fox News doesn't do that. MSNBC doesn't do that. So I'm watching or listening to CNN. And so, 1 for them and 0 for the two others. And we're seeing more of this. And I think ESPN was the Holy Grail that's going to push all of the other companies that were so reluctant to offer services online and just wanted to cling to this model where they make more money. Go ahead, Michael. You wanted to weigh in on this, I think.
Well, yeah, I'm a big proponent of the cutting the cord thing. So, I think it's great that ESPN is doing this, but there's other. You mentioned a couple that are not doing it, but CBSN is a news station that's broadcasting CBS News stories, 24-hour streaming news. It's about 15 hours a day of, they say, new content, although
It's not.
It's as new as CNN.
It's
It's really very similar to CNN.
It's more similar to headline news back in the day. It's headline news
that's
with
probably true.
CNN
That's probably
Light.
a better
What they
comparison.
do is they have sometimes they'll go live because I checked it out because I'm a news whore or freak or whatever you want to call it. And I looked at it, and it's basically like they'll rerun clips from CBS This Morning or CBS Evening News the previous night, that sort of thing. And what they're doing is they're just taking their content that they gathered from their conventional properties, and they're just running it over and over. And if you actually watch it for any length of time, it's like headline news where it was the same thing over and over and over. Go ahead,
repeats. Michael. Yeah, it repeats. But CNN's the same way.
Oh yeah. I think earlier today,
I love the notion that ESPN is divorcing itself from the cable model and can sell directly because they're as you already pointed out, they're the ones that are providing the revenue stream. This is the chink in the armor that could make the whole system collapse, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Michael. I was shocked to see that ESPN was actually being allowed to go onto these Sling TVs. I mean, this is a huge deal, and I never thought that it would happen this way. I thought it would come in with other smaller sports would be able to go onto Sling TV, and then we would start approaching the bigger and bigger things until we got to ESPN.
I expected it was going to be the other direction, that the sports themselves would peel off like an onion and begin to find a way to distribute their content without having to go through ESPN. That hasn't happened. I mean, and maybe this will be the thing that will still let ESPN keep its grasp on that, its firm grip on that whole sports market.
It'll also be interesting to see if there's any flexibility at all in terms of the channels that you get in this service. I don't think there is, based off of this listing. I don't think there is, but it will be interesting how soon after they do this that they might be able to offer some sort of packages where you get to choose what kind of channels that you get. Because if you could drop CNN if you're not into sports, that's something else too.
Yeah. Because you mean ESPN?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you could drop, if you weren't into sports,
I would drop ESPN because I don't care about that. I never watch sports. Never.
And then it would probably be like $5 because probably ESPN is like 15 out of the 20.
That's what I have to think, and so I'm perfectly willing to pay for something like that so I could get Food Network again.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to get some of those smaller networks for just a couple bucks a month.
I think it's going to be popular, and I think that this is because there's HBO Go, right? There's the CBS, whatever it's called, the equivalent. So I think that with ESPN, which is the most expensive cable channel or set of channels to purchase, owned by Disney, ABC, this is the straw that will break the camel's back, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, because this was the holy grail of legacy. If you wanted to watch the game or Sports Center or whatever, and I watched some commercials with that guy who just died, and he was amazing. He was really, really good, and that was a sad loss. He was a really fantastic anchor for ESPN. So anyway, okay, so next up is this Italian restaurant that is trolling Yelp, because Yelp, it's interesting. I guess they would treat you better if you were an advertiser than if you weren't, and they sued, and the judge said, well, that's their prerogative.
I'm shocked.
That's their prerogative. They can do it. It's First Amendment issue. So in response, the Italian restaurant started offering a discount for a 1-star review. They said if you went on Yelp and gave them a 1-star review, they would give you a discount. And now they've just upped their discount to 50% off. So for their premium pizza, which is $32 or whatever, you can get half off if you give them a 1-star review. So I think it's hilarious, and it's a great way to highlight to people, because when I look at Yelp, I do find it useful, but I look at their stuff that's recommended or whatever, and then if I click to 7 other reviews are not recommended, and I click on those, I find them very useful often, and it's not like a spam prevention thing. I mean, I'm wondering, why are these not recommended? Because they seem very useful and recent. So what I do with Yelp is I always say I want to see everything, and I want to see them in the most recent order, like newest to oldest, right? Because I don't care if they were all screwed up 4 years ago. If in the last 3 months they've really got their game going, that's more useful to me because I'm considering dining there. So Yelp, I think, is greedy like any company is. I don't get upset when someone sends me a check. Right? Go ahead, Michael.
There are plenty of examples where Yelp. Well, I'm reporting something I have heard from other restaurant owners, so I don't know this firsthand. I know it only secondhand. But it was my understanding that you post a management response to a bad review, and they don't post it, that they take it down. Good reviews that you do have from real customers get taken down because you haven't bought advertising on Yelp. So they unfairly game their own system. It's fine to say it's freedom of expression for them to do what they're doing, but it's not. It's really misrepresenting themselves to the marketplace that they're a fair arbiter of what a restaurant has done to customers.
Any other thoughts?
It's a funny troll.
I think it's great. And they're getting so much publicity. And I think Yelp, they said like 2 or 20,000 one-star reviews have been deleted by Yelp. They're actually deleting the one-star reviews, right? From this guy because he's getting all this public. I think it's great. This is the kind of story I'm just going to highlight, just to draw more attention to it. So there's a little troll in all of us, right, Kevin? Right, Kevin Bryan from Georgia? Not
yes,
really.
There is. I know.
You foreigner. You don't even look. You don't even look like a Georgia
with a
guy.
complete lack of any sort of Southern accent whatsoever.
Yes. Hello, I was born and raised in Georgia. Oh my God. Flaunting your money with the Queen on it. All right. Let me look at comments before we go to our. Aaron Weathersby on YouTube says, "Hail Alan." I'm sure Alan will protest that vigorously. And then comments on Google Plus. Wendell says accreditation should be about. Sorry, going down here. Accreditation should be about ensuring that America can and continues to compete internationally. True. One of the best lines I ever heard was from Newt Gingrich. He was talking about rich Fairfax County versus like West Virginia, not so rich, Fairfax County, Virginia, which is between Fairfax and Loudoun. They're always like one of the top 5 richest counties in the United States. He said the argument isn't whether Fairfax schools can compete with, Wheeling, West Virginia. The argument is whether Fairfax schools can compete with Tokyo, and whether Wheeling schools can compete with Bonn. And I think that was a great observation. Michael Ellis, how was your week, sir?
Well, it was a difficult week, actually. I guess I can share this here. My father passed away on Monday after, he struggled a bit over the weekend only, but prior to that, on Thanksgiving, he'd had a stroke, and we'd gotten him through the hospital and rehab and everything. He was doing quite well, and had come home right before Christmas. But then he had a fall on Friday last week, a week ago today, right after I came home, and then he declined very rapidly over the weekend and passed away on Monday. So it was a tough week, but I'm happy to say we loved my father very much, and he'll be missed, but he lived a full life, and there's really no regrets that it was time for him to go.
Well, he's got a great legacy. I know your sister from online conversations, and I know you, and for whatever reason, I still invite you to the show. I'm not sure. But
even after knowing my sister, you still invite me back?
No, your sister is awesome.
It's because you have a sister too. I know what that's about.
She's an author, and I have 2 sisters. One's a nurse, and one's an author. and a business consultant. But yeah, he's got a great legacy. There's nothing to say. I mean, what do you say? But
Yeah.
kudos to your dad's legacy.
Thank you.
And may you, do him proud as you have thus far. So, Kevin, how was your Google Plus week, sir?
My Google Plus week was pretty good. I just wanted to explain one thing. I was making jokes about the Atlanta public school system that, as far as accreditation goes, we like to cheat. What I was making a crack about was actually pretty sad. There's been a cheating scandal in Atlanta public schools where lots and lots of teachers and principals were involved in artificially giving answers to students on standardized tests for an extended period of time. We're going through the trial in Atlanta now. Several people have had to resign, and some people who didn't resign are now under trial now for it. It's actually a pretty sad situation. But I guess we had to go through that. In terms of my week specifically, it's been all right. Can't think of anything specific. I've been enjoying hearing about different things at CES. And other than that, just enjoying the new year, enjoying the number 2015. That's pretty much it for me.
That's good. Alan, can you chime in and tell us how your Google Plus week was?
Busy. I've been busy for several months now on a number of projects, and those projects are all finally going live, and it's great to see them. But in the middle of all of this, my book was actually published as
we got it in today. That looks great. I love the cover. Wait, hold it up again. Tell us the name.
The name is
Designing and Developing for Google Glass.
Published by O'Reilly.
Published by O'Reilly. Uh-huh. And written by authors Alan Furstenberg and Jason Salas. Alan, regular co-host of the show here, and Jason, a not infrequent panelist in the show. So how's it doing? I'm very interested in the book publishing and book selling process that you've had to go through.
Honestly, I don't know. I have not looked at.
Afraid to check, are you?
Sales since the physical book itself was released. Ebook sales have actually been reasonably good. I'm not sure what I expected. I didn't really have an expectation. But a check's been coming in every month, and it's hard to knock that.
Well, Alan, how long has it been since when you first started writing it to this point?
I think it's difficult to say. Jason and I, when we first started talking about it, one of the things that we kind of was trying to convince O'Reilly to let us do it was saying, hey, we could rush this book into, and have it done by I/O 2013. And that was way, way ambitious. Stupidly ambitious. So it's been well over a year that we've been, in one phase or another, working on the book.
What was their reaction, Alan? I'm curious about that because you gave them a deadline, and then you had to say, this was a dumb idea. Were they obviously they were cool with it because they ended up publishing it still, but was that an awkward conversation, or they were on board?
Well, you mean we'll have it done by
I/O 13, and then like, oops, just kidding.
I don't even think they talked to us by the time that we could have gotten it done. We were still trying to pitch the idea to them then.
What was the physical process of that? If you have a great idea for a tech book, how did you get on their radar screen? Was it a email? I mean, you Googled an email address, or did you know somebody? How did that happen?
We hunted down, I think the way we ultimately did it is we hunted down the name of a person that was there and found their phone number and called them, and they said, I'm not the right person to talk to, but they transferred us to the person who was.
Wow.
And
so that's pretty random, really.
that won't. They do have a process for submitting ideas, and presumably that process does work for other people. Jason and I were impatient, however. We weren't willing to let the process.
Who you know is usually better
I'm
than
shocked.
process.
Um,
Or if you can get access is better than process. Yeah.
As my sister says, Dan, it's not who you know, it's who I know.
but that said, the process as a whole was pretty good. And if you are interested in publishing for O'Reilly, O'Reilly has a fairly clear set of pages about what they expect from their authors and how to work with them.
Cool.
They're pretty good about that.
Nice.
How many bookstores
Congratulations.
is it in? Is because it's an actual distributed book, right?
Actual distributed book, yes.
I mean, like you could go into Barnes and Noble in Mountain View, and it's probably sitting on the shelf. So do you have any idea on those metrics?
I've got no idea how many actual stores actually bought a copy to stick in there. I do know that you can now get it through Amazon, so Amazon is selling it. I have no idea how many sales they've made. I know some physical bookstores like Powell's are selling it as well, but they're selling it through a distribution center, same as Amazon does. I don't know if anybody has a physical copy that you can walk in and
So
buy.
should I look for you? Should I look for you at a book signing at the nearest Barnes and Noble sometime in the spring?
I wouldn't object to doing a signing at the. Let's see, your nearest Barnes and Noble would be the Greenwich Village Barnes and Noble.
I have no idea where there's a Barnes and Noble.
I certainly
I don't know.
wouldn't object to doing a book signing there. I don't think it's going to happen, but
I'm more likely to be at a Barnes and Noble in Rockford, Illinois. Would you mind doing that?
I'm trying to think if there's a reason why I'd be anywhere near Rockford, Illinois.
No, not as long as you've got a brain the size of yours.
So, it's exciting, and it's been fun, and now you've got me insanely curious to know just how many have been sold recently.
Excellent. Well, we're all proud of you, Alan, and
Congratulations.
how you managed to
It's
mask
been a long journey, but we're
how you
Good.
managed to mask your big brain so well is on the show every week is beyond me.
Well, when I'm dragged down by people like you, Dan, it's tough.
Oh, you
it's
can
not
do-
so hard.
You can do better than that, Alan. Come on, unleash the daggers. Hey, thank you all so very much. My week was good. We got this is exciting. I started my paper August 15th. My paper before that, WarrenCountyReport.com was the initial site. Now it redirects to WarrenCountyVA.com. But I started it in 2006, and I was trying to figure out what software to use. So I talked to John C. Dvorak, and he suggested Drupal. And so I used it. It was a great suggestion. It was fantastic software. And about a year later, I wanted to do a newspaper, and then this guy who I knew actually got fired from the main local weekly newspaper. So I called him up, or he emailed me and said, "I'm looking for a job. You know anybody who's hiring?" So I said, So I basically I could only afford to pay him gas money at the time, and but now I had somebody who could do the content because I always wanted to do a newspaper. So I started August 15th, 2006, and then so that was volume 1, and then on January, in early January 2007, it was volume 2 and stuff. So we've gone and now we got a circulation of 12,000. And that's where I cut it. I could print more, and it would be read by more, but you have to balance revenue and stuff. So we have about 2.2 people, according to auditors in general, read a paper. So we have about a 30,000 audience. So we're bigger in Warren County than all the other newspapers combined, and we're number 2 in Frederick County, in Winchester, Virginia. And the reason I mention this is I last night I just did it was volume 10, issue 1. So we just started a 10th volume, and it's very exciting to see that some guy. I remember I applied at the Fairfax Journal for a job as a reporter, and they didn't hire me because I wasn't qualified on paper. And so this guy who wasn't qualified is now, I can write whatever I want and 30,000 people read it, not even including online. So that's cool. And it shows you that.
Did you send the guy that didn't hire you a copy of the 10th volume? Or the 10th volume?
I did not. I don't even remember who it was. It was.
You should.
I was
Let it be a.
I was I was young. I was in my 20s. I was young, tall, and skinny like you.
It was only 10 years ago. Come on.
But it's exciting. Just like Alan, he's got. Except mine's. I mean, Alan's worldwide, right? His book, and that's so exciting. And Jason's such a wonderful guy. And there's a great video I shared in the last week. I don't know if Alan shared it as well, but if you look at my profile, if you look for it, or just go on YouTube and look for it, but it's Jason on his TV channel in Guam talking about it, and he mentions Alan, and he talks about their crazy time difference because Guam is, I think, 15 hours ahead, and he said it was kind of neat. It sucked because it was rare that they could communicate directly, but it was cool because like while Jason was sleeping, Alan was toiling away on the book, and then while Alan was sleeping, Jason was working. So it's basically like a non-stop operation. So like going to Elance and hiring, a Pakistani guy and like, someone's always doing something. So it's really cool. And Jason's a terrific guy, really smart, and he's ADHD like I am, except taller. And they just came out with this wonderful book, and I read it. And I'm not a developer now. I used to be. I wrote a computer game in 93, 94. But I'm not up to speed, which is a shame because I'd like to be. I'm just not sure what language and where to begin because I haven't done it so long. But so anyway, I'm excited about that milestone to be able to put volume and put the Roman numeral X and issue 1 on our issue. And you can, if you want to check it out, it's on my profile. It's also at WarrenCountyVA.com and FrederickCounty.com. Also, I'll be on the Virginia Talk Radio Network tomorrow, as I mentioned at the top of the show. It's at 11:07 a.m. Eastern, 8:07 a.m. Pacific Time, Saturday, January 10th, 2015. I'll be discussing the verdict in the McDonald trial. We have a fantastic legal analysis in our current issue. It's really good. It's free to read at WarrenCountyVA.com or FrederickCounty.com. You should check it out if you're interested about the former governor's sentencing. And then I'll also be discussing the tragic events in France. This program is called Google Plus Week. We discuss Google topics and tech news and basically whatever I can get away with without Alan, literally physically beating me. That's every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. We have another program where we discuss Android. You'll never guess the name. It's called Our Android Week. That is every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. It's on Google Plus and YouTube Live. So I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks so much for the comments. And we will continue to monitor those and respond as only we can with our dry wit and biting way about us. But anyway, thank you all very much. We really appreciate it. And until next time, have a wonderful Google Plus week.